नमस्कार. शनिवारच्या देशदूत संवाद कट्ट्यामध्ये तुमच्या सगळ्यांचं स्वागत. आज माझ्याबरोबर खूप खास पाहुणे आहेत. खास एवढ्यासाठी कारण की भारतीय सिनेमावर कोणीतरी काम करायला परदेशातनं आलेलं आहे. सो विथ मी इज मोनिया Acciari, and she is the associate professor of Dumont University in the UK. So Monia, welcome to Deshdoot, and I'm so glad that you could find some time to be here with us on our show of Deshdoot Sanwad Katta.
Thank you for having me here. I'm sorry I can't speak Marathi, but namaskara to everyone, which is all I can say.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So Monia is here in Nashik, and she is working on the archives of Indian cinema. And she has been looking into very many aspects of the Indian cinema, right from the Marathi film industry to the Hindi film industry. And of course, Dada Saheb Phalke being from Nashik, Monia was attracted to Nashik and she's here. So let's find out more about her, of her work, and what kind of research she is doing on the film archives of Indian cinema. So Monia, like I said earlier, what brings you to Nashik?
I'm a film historian, and I look at Indian cinema broadly speaking. So I think that at some point in life, when you are an historian and live abroad, you need to come to Nashik to somehow to trace the path of the history of Dada Saheb Phalke. I was very curious about what I would find here about him, and to be frank, I didn't find much. Yeah. Which was quite disappointing. I was really hoping to find a lot more, and especially because I like digging into archives, into collection, going to museums. But then I found a completely different dimension to the history of Dada Saheb Phalke, which is linked to the people, to their story, and those kind of story really gave me a different feel about what cinema is. I kept looking for traces of Dada Saheb Phalke, but that journey took me to something else, or rather allowed me to see something else.
Okay, great. Yeah. So what is the else that you find out? Do you see that people are very closely associated with cinema then and now?
So yes, definitely. I think that by being in Nashik, I had the chance to look at single screen cinemas, which is a very strong theme that is currently, there is a lot of attention on single screen cinemas and what they mean in different contexts in India. So as I was here, I had the chance to see some of them, to visit some of them, and I had the chance to access a couple of them. That means that by accessing the cinema, I could access also the story of the people that were either owning the cinema or somehow running it.
Okay.
My very first encounter was with a ticket seller, someone who told me something very beautiful that triggered something else in my mind. And I asked this person, what does it mean, this cinema, to you? And he said, this cinema is everything for me. By working and living for this cinema, I could build my house, have my family. And it was it was such a touching comment.
I know.
And that comment allowed me to then go to the next step and finding new people and interviewing new people and seeing how their connection to cinema does not end in a cinema hall. I work on a concept called Citizen Film Archives, and to me, interviewing these people and knowing their memories, it was a it was a way for me to access their homes, look at their objects, and really know a bit more about the history of those objects.
Definitely. What you say is that life is totally, in sync with what you're experiencing on screen. I have so many memories myself, screen and theaters. Usually, Indian cinema has more or less been of grandeur. It showed a bigger, larger picture on screen. And for any common person, any common man, to live that kind of a grandeur or a larger, larger than life picture, that was enabled only through the movies or the cinema.
Yeah.
So I think the emotional attachment to the whole picture, the whole plot, the attachment to the heroes. I'm not saying the actors, I'm saying the heroes, because we have a lot of hero worship in India.
Yeah.
You will find it so much more in the South film industry. And heroes were part of every home, heroines, heroes, they were part of every home, and people found themselves so closely associated, emotionally in touch with them. Do you find this kind of connect all around the world with cinema, or do you find it something which is different with the Indian cinema?
It's difficult to comment on every, with other industries. What I can say certainly is that within the European context, for instance, which is perhaps more close to where I live, it's not so
Intense?
It's not so intense, yes, like you would have here in India or within Indian communities abroad.
Okay.
Same thing is in the US, for instance, or with Hollywood cinema. The type of fandom, for instance, that you would find in those kind of industries is a lot less. It's a lot less powerful than what you would find here. What I find here is that sense of attachment with cinema, it's a lot more based on a daily relationship with the stars or with a film or with anything that is about cinema, with anything that is about that pleasure of loving cinema. It's more than being a fan. It's more than talking about or developing, discourses around fandom. It's a lot more. It's a way of life.
True.
You would, as I say, that we would find objects with images of stars, with images of films, and those objects belong to the everyday life.
True.
And those objects enter the life of people, and they find, at least in what I could observe, is that those people find those objects worth to be kept.
People also copied the dressing styles and hairstyles from the movies, from the cinema, and brought it to their own lives, whether it was a shirt or a haircut or a hair clip or a belt or whatever.
It's a way to be with the star or like the star, but also it's a way of being with the star, for instance, or it's as I say, it's a daily reminder of a specific movie. I came across objects that are quite interesting that perhaps we will find in bazaar. Small boxes, match boxes with images of Mother India, for instance, or Coolie, with images of stars on printed on that.
Right. We had so many packagings with movies.
Yeah.
Like at times there were firecrackers packagings. There used to be all the newspapers. Now we are in a newspaper office, and most of the media houses or most of the newspapers used to have one full coverage of the entertainment industry, give movie reviews, talked about the hero heroines, and people used to keep that as a record and keep on reading it for the whole week. And many have cuttings of those. You'll find many people cuttings. The other thing I find people collecting about the movies is the music, because that is everyday relationship with the movie. More so in the earlier times through the radio, and now with multiple media options. And the radio used to keep on playing music all the day through, and people used to work and even be able to carry the radio wherever they went, and they were so closely associated to movies through the music that it played.
Very true. And music, of course, it's not, I don't have to mention anything about the significance of movies for Indians. But what I can say is that, just to link to what you were mentioning, and I had the chance to interview many people in the city of Leicester in the UK, many Indian communities there, and they mentioned, or rather they had, and they showed me small collections, personal collections of records.
Yes.
They were all signed because they were normally they were lent to other people, but they had to make sure that that record had to come back to the owner.
Yes.
So records were certainly a way to to be engaged or to stay engaged with a specific film, for instance, or a culture, or
so there were records earlier, then there were cassettes. You will find people, collecting so many small cassettes which played in the cassette player, and there were these, VCR video cassettes, and there were shops that rented the video cassettes and a video player, and people used to have a night round of movies. So anything about the movies has always excited the Indian audiences, and it has been a part of their lives very, very closely. While you are researching all this, and you are finding objects and memories of people, I hear that you also have a plan to display all of it.
Yes. So why I'm doing that? It's because I have a background in archival work. And I think that archives in general, wherever we are in India or wherever, they're quite limiting in what they say, simply because archives are somehow, they have their specific ways of working and their specific histories to display and tell. And those and what you find in archives are often objects that are quite to some extent obvious. So posters, apart from the movie, you would find posters, you would find lobby cards, you would find song booklets, and those on this kind of memorabilia, which is definitely interesting to understand the film culture. But what we don't find, and what we don't find, are those very personal objects, simply because we need to understand if those objects are archivable or have an archival value, which I think they have, and this is being discussed with some other colleagues across India. So those objects hold a history, which are called microhistories, that I think they are worth to be revealed. How we are going to do this is in November. On the 30th of November, here in Nashik, we are going to, during the Ankur Film Festival, we will have a film exhibition where we are going to display some objects belonging to people, just to tell some stories that are not just the stories of, say, the cinema owner or I don't know, the entrepreneur, but it's also to try and unravel those personal attachment with cinemas, why that object is kept, and what do they mean. To say something more about the localities, first of all, and so the locality of Nashik, but hopefully this will trigger some further interest in other cities as well, because my point is I would like to possibly build a pattern where citizen collections and citizen film history can become a lot more recognized than what it is now, and run in parallel with the same historical significance as institutional archives are.
Very true. I think your work would mean a lot more to Nashik, definitely. One, because like you said, you were disappointed. We too are disappointed because we don't have much of the father of Indian film industry, Dada Saib Phalke, here. And every time we discuss this, we resolve that yes, we should have something in his memory. There have been attempts to do that, but they've not been successful. But I hope this also triggers that sentiment that very strongly that Nashik should host some of this kind of film archival, and in his name, of course. And talking to you has, I'm sure, like me, has taken our audiences down the memory lanes of their growing years and their interactions with the movies and the single screen theaters. I, for one, did have a very nostalgic rundown, and my days with movies and with friends and family and visiting the screens, and having a pattern of which movie theater you went to, and the canteen would offer what there.
Yeah.
From that point of time to how you book a ticket.
Yeah.
And I remember my father being very, very clear that if you want to go to a movie, go and book a ticket in the morning if you have to go in the evening. Or because he was well known, and because even we were a part of the theater community, he would call up his friends and book a ticket. But no black tickets,
Yeah.
if you had to, there was no ticket that day, we would postpone the movie to the next week. But he
Yeah.
was very strict that no, probably because he also was a part of the theater ownership.
Yeah, yes.
And things like that. So a lot of things which also brought out some values, which also brought out some fun, a lot of entertainment, a lot of relaxation, a lot of hero worship, a lot of family time, a lot of friends time, and of course the trends that came to life from the movies Alive.
Yeah.
All of that really came back to me while speaking to you on the archival part of movies, and I'm glad, and I'm sure our audiences would also take that trip down their memory lanes with all these movies. And the youngsters today, they practically live music and movies and all the time.
I think I want to just add something, because you said the youngster, which is very dear to my heart, given I'm a teacher. I think that this work is important because most likely single screen cinemas are not going to be there at some point, right?
True.
There are urban ambition or some kind of development that might be in place, and so those architecture are most likely not going to be there. To believe that they're going to stay for a long time is to be very, very positive, which I really hope this is going to happen. But in the event this is not going to happen, at least for those generation, there is something that stays with them. There are those stories that we need to try and capture to make sure that they're going to stay there for them, that they can again go back and revisit what their ancestors did, and how were they listening music, and how were they watching film, but also where. So I think this kind of citizen heritage is something that we need to invest in.
Yes, definitely.
And we need to try and find ways and spaces to keep it alive.
And as you very rightly said, they are architectural spaces, because theaters, single screen theaters, were constructed in a typical format.
Yes.
And their parkings and their spaces, and though they were smaller, but they did have that.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for being here on the Deshdoot Samvad Katta today, and taking us to a very different perspective of Indian cinema and the whole importance of archives and how they are relating to our lives and what it means to the next generation. We looking forward to your exhibition that you plan on November.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you want to make an appeal to people if they have anything.
Yes, certainly. If you, in any way or form, if you think that you have any object that is worth having a look at, or somehow document or make it accessible, at least through images, through people, to everyone, to people like me, for instance, who would travel to come and look for this kind of object, or if you want to be part in some way or form to the voices of citizen film heritage, please get in touch. I'm currently supported and collaborating with Abbiviati, Media for Development, which is an NGO here in Nashik. So they will be taking calls, or getting your emails.
So you can even get in touch with Abhivyakti, or you can get in touch with Deshdoot, so we can forward your calls, or we can forward whatever you have to say to Monia, definitely. So thank you, Monia. Thank you for being here and taking us on a very different journey, which is important for the city. This whole concept of having a citizen film archival, and because life is so closely
Yes.
related to
Yeah.
films, and it's also a part of documentation of evolution in a sense
Yes.
in that way.
Yes.
So thank you once again for being
Thank
here.
you so much for having me here. It was a pleasure.